hello, this is me again. I have a quick question about cheese because the cheddar cheese I was going to buy is out of stock, and there's some other cheese that I wanted to ask your opinion on. Anyway, call me back, please. Love you. Bye-bye.
All right, Alana, Jaylo.
Yes.
I just came into the room.
Yeah.
I unplugged the headphones from my iPad, so you briefly heard something from a Clubhouse room when I was coming in here.
Yeah.
I've only been in this room once, and this is still only like my second day on Clubhouse. But the way I understand it is this room will have different speakers from the Black community who are successful in their field come on. But it's mainly women.
Yeah.
So this morning, the moderator was talking to a lady who has some sketch comedy show on HBO.
Okay.
And what was really interesting, she was talking about how she worked on a number of sketch comedy shows before she started her own. I think she said 7. So by the time she got her deal with HBO, she knew how much a show like that should cost. She understood where the money was going to go to, what staff members were going to be hired, and how much money they would need for sets and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
So that went into her pitch for the show. And she believes that that was responsible for help getting her the deal because she was so thorough about it. And she was speaking about how it really helps anybody who wants to be successful to really know what you want and put it down on paper.
Okay.
You were asking me, can anybody just jump in on the conversation?
Yeah.
The way it works on Clubhouse, at least right now, is you press this button called Wave.
Yeah.
And if the moderator decides to take questions, they'll see who did that, and then they can call on that person to ask questions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's really addictive, babes.
Yeah, wow.
Last night after you went to bed,
Yeah.
I told myself, okay, I'm going to go on there until like 11, and then 11 became 11:35, and then 12 I ended. What happened was, I found this cool movie chat room. They were interviewing the director of this film called Crisis.
Yeah.
Which is on video on demand right now, and apparently it's doing pretty well. But they were mostly talking about movies from the 70s, and the director said, well, I've also been watching a lot of pre-Code era movies from the early 1930s and late 1920s.
Oh, wow.
Then they speculated. Somebody in the room asked, "Well, what are some go-to movies you guys watch?" Go through the list of the films, and they said it's interesting. I think, with the exception of There Will Be Blood, not all of these movies are more than 20 years old. And somebody said that the reason for that is our attention is so divided between cell phones and the internet, plus now you can view movies at home more.
Right.
That a film really doesn't get in your head and live with you the same way that it used to.
Right.
So that's my Clubhouse rant for the morning.
Wow.
How do you feel about me being on there?
Well, I don't mind as long as you, as long as you like it, but it sounds like it can be pretty addicting.
Yeah, I've heard that online. Like I was going on YouTube the other night.
Yeah.
And this guy was talking about how do you build up your followers on Clubhouse, and he said, I have a warning, stay tuned. And then at the end of it, he's like, I keep hearing these stories about people saying that they didn't sleep before going into work, and they were listening to Clubhouse while they were supposed to be having dinner with your family. And he's like, it's fun to be on there, but you got to live a life too. Oh, so that's the other thing. Before I went in the movie chat room the other night, I was in some other one, and I think it was for new members of Clubhouse. This doctor comes on, and they said, when they introduced him, they're like, this guy has been on here since February 28th, so he must know a lot about it.
This guy?
Yeah, they gave his name, but I don't remember. You know how I am. But he was some doctor, and he said, I was on here a lot the first couple of weeks, but then, I realized I still need to do basic functions like sleep and be there for my patients.
Well, I was wondering what you were laughing at because I think we were getting ready to make dinner, right? Or eat dinner or something, and you started laughing.
This was later on. It was something else funny I heard on Clubhouse. So this was right before I went into the movie room.
Yeah, this was like later on yesterday. I can't remember when it was.
Yeah.
This is way before the movie room. This is like, I think we were about ready to eat we were ready to eat dinner or make dinner. I can't remember what it was. And you just started laughing. Oh, I think I remember when it was. We were waiting for the dinner to cool off, I think it was. Or anyway, but you were laughing. I'm like, what's going on? You're like, oh, it's nothing. I was just listening to something. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Oh, babe, I wish you were on iOS so you could experience Clubhouse with me.
I understand, but...
Yes, but you're like, I don't need these apps, okay?
Well, no, I mean, I
worry... happy looking at the wall.
Bubs.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, with any social media platform, right, you have a risk of being addicted to it, right? And it's like, I don't want to be so addicted to it that I forget that I have to do stuff. Like, oh yeah, I remember I have to do my laundry. Oh yeah, I remember I have to make my own dinner. I have to spend time with my boyfriend. I have to call my family members. I have to send emails out to good friends. It's like, oh wait, I forgot. I have people in my life. And I joke.
Yes, yes.
But I mean, I don't want to get to the point where I have to listen to this before I get up in the morning, and it takes the place of what I usually do when I get up in the morning. I
remember when I was on LiveJournal before my asshole ex-boyfriend sold my account information.
Girlfriend.
I said ex-boyfriend. What did I say?
You said ex-boyfriend.
I meant ex-roommate. Damn it. That was a slip, y'all. It was not Freudian at all.
He's a straight man, I can assure you, everybody. Yes. He's very straight.
I meant to say roommate.
His ex-roommate.
Because I'm dyslexic, I speak really, really fast.
And I heard about LiveJournal. I also heard of people being on LiveJournal and like everything is public. Everything is public.
I would go on there so much, but this was back before smartphones.
Yes.
And I didn't have a working computer at home. So I'd have to travel to the library.
Yes.
At the time, it was the, oh God, what was that college in LA? I forgot the name of it. It's the one that Kramer graduated from, Michael Richards.
I am not sure. Stanbury?
No. Anyways, it was the same one that he went to, but this was obviously years later.
Right.
I would go to the accessibility area in their library from like 10 until they closed off at, I think it was 7, and just spend most of my time either on LiveJournal or DVD.com.
Oh my goodness.
And in my regular journal, I would write about what I read on LiveJournal that day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was pretty
So,
odd.
I have to tell you a little bit of a story.
Go ahead.
I wasn't quite as addicted as you were. However, I was being introduced to the world of chat lines from my late teens to my early 20s. And this happened. I am embarrassed to say this because I was in this program for people that were transitioning to college, and a friend of mine introduced me to this line called The Loop, and this was, I don't know how long this line was on. It was like a local. I think it was like a local chat line in Seattle or something. And then it was very strange. But in the beginning of all of that, she would be on there constantly. It was very strange. I wasn't quite as on there as she was, and then I was introduced to like this other thing called the Seattle Donut, which I wasn't on there much, but some people get really addicted to like phone platforms and social media platforms, like really, really easily. I would imagine more social media platforms than anything.
Yeah, like I don't know if Clubhouse is even going to be around in 5 years.
Yeah.
But I do think that they're doing some innovative stuff that probably will be incorporated into podcast or internet radio in the future. Like the ability, so the thing that regular radio had over podcasts until probably like this month and in some sense still until now, is the ability to take live phone calls. And I think that Clubhouse is going to change that. It doesn't mean that all podcasts are going to necessarily be live to an audience, but at least the option is going to exist. And some podcasts are going to be able to really interact with their listeners while the show is going on.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I think that that's going to be a huge innovation in podcasts.
Wow.
Yes. So, but let's get off of Clubhouse for a second because I could go on all day.
Okay.
Tell me about these chat lines.
Oh, jeez.
Like, how would that work? Would you go on the internet to find a specific number? Would you dial through your computer?
No, I've been hearing it from friends. I mean, there were the ones were actually voicemail systems. Like you could have you could find out what your email was, what your emails were on the phone. So like there was this one thing called One Box that me and a couple of my friends were on, and I could create like a way to send messages to people in my list or something, and I could check my email as well on that. Some of my other friends were on another system called eVoice, which was another voicemail system as well, and I heard a lot of good things about it, but that discontinued. As far as chat lines are concerned, I heard about these through friends. Did I ever tell you my Seattle donut story, which is very strange because I wasn't on there much?
I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was around, let me think. I think I might have been 22 at the time, very young. I was on there one day, and I think most of the time I would get on there on the weekend because that's when my cell phone was, I was able to use it more. So I was on there, not that long after I checked it out, and the chat line excuse me, the chat line host actually hit me up and tried to hit on me. It was very strange.
That does not surprise me at all.
No, he sounded creepy though. I was like, I don't know if there's any girl that can actually say that the chat line host actually hit on them, but I could.
Didn't you tell me that you almost hooked up with the dude who like molested one of his nieces?
I didn't hook up with him at all. I wasn't going to.
You know the story I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, that was really bad. That was in a different one. I wasn't planning to. I don't know what was going on, but I wasn't really planning to meet this guy. I just thought he seemed friendly, but I wasn't planning on anything. And the weird thing was that I think it was like closer to Christmas. This was like, well, of course, before I met my wig.
Yes.
Way before I met my wig. And he's like, so what are you doing for Christmas? I'm like, why is that? He's like, well, I'm trying to find a place to go because I can't see my family because I'm not allowed to be around kids. And I'm like, ooh, that's not good. That is not good.
Yeah, usually that's not for a good reason.
No. And he was trying to, and this is what I don't get, right? He was trying to say, oh, you should be more understanding. But I'm thinking, well, how could I be understanding if you could offend again? And honestly, I think he should have still been locked up. And I don't know, no matter what level of offender he was, it was really, really strange. And I've had some strange messages too. I've had strange people message me and they were still incarcerated because I guess incarcerated people are able to do that. I don't know how. But somebody's like that. I think it's very weird.
Mm-hmm. Did One Box have an internet component, or was it all phone based? Besides for the email,
I think it was all phone based. And keep in mind, this was like back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and I know you don't remember all the details, but how expensive was it?
I don't think I think it was free.
Really? I
think it was. I had a One Box account at one time. There was another phone system called Atello. Atello was another one where you can check your email on there too, but that one was discontinued. And I just heard about it through word of mouth.
How many followers did you have on One Box or Atello?
I don't believe I had followers at all. I just would email people that I want, or not email, but voice message people that I wanted to.
But you could send out a voice message to a bunch of people at once, right?
I think they had to be in my list.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So, yeah, I mean, all those platforms can be very addicting.
They can.
Yeah.
Especially now, because at least back in the day, when I was using LiveJournal, I had to actually go out of my house. And you had to call a number and go through a few extra steps. But since most of us have some sort of handheld portable internet device, besides for Jaylo,
Not right now, anyway.
It can be very addictive.
Yeah, and in some ways, I'm glad I'm free of it, because I'm pretty sure that if I got on Clubhouse, then I wouldn't want to get off.
It's very fun, at least so far. I'm sure I'm going to do something weird that gets me kicked off.
I hope you don't do that.
Well, you know, everybody's show sounds so professional.
Yeah.
And I want the stuff I do to sound good.
Yeah.
But I also want it to be Rick based.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I swear a lot. I mess up my sentences. I will yell at people if they piss me off.
I don't think you're as bad as some other people would be.
Thank you.
Right. I mean, I've heard some pretty worse off people than you are, and they don't care about whoever it is. And some people have no filter, but I think you're actually more filtered than some.
That's a good thing. To some extent.
To some extent, I think you do have a filter.
You do need to express yourself in life.
Right.
And let the world know what's going on inside your head.
Right.
You know.
But I think you're actually a little bit more filtered than some people I've heard.
Do you think I'm too filtered?
No, I don't think you're too filtered, and I've told you sometimes.
That's a strong tone.
But I do think in some ways you are. I mean, you actually know how to be quiet when you're supposed to be quiet, but you also have put your foot in your mouth many times.
When? Never around you.
I'm sure. I don't know. I don't. Maybe you haven't done it around me. I can't think of any at the moment, but I'm sure. But you even admitted that you have.
I do think that that's part of the game. If you are going to be an open person, you will say some stuff that you eventually regret.
I think you can still be open, but also very prudent.
You are somebody who, oppressed may be a strong term, but you felt guarded based on some of the experience you've had in your childhood with relatives.
Yes, I have.
So, we are different in that respect.
Yes, and if you grow up in a home where expression is free, then of course you would feel that way. But I think that you can have free expression, but you also need to be a little bit, shall I say, mindful of what you say? Here's
an idea I have for a room on Clubhouse. Maybe I just do this once, or this could become a regular thing.
Okay.
We call it Hate Dad. And
what?
I come on as a moderator with one or two of my friends. We each take turns telling one or two stories about how awful our dad was. And then we let people in the audience come in and tell their horrible stories about their fathers.
Yeah, I don't think I took that.
And we call it Hate Dad. And we just get to rage about our dads for a while.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a room I want to go into, Bubs.
Oh.
It's a little too, it's a little too rage-filled for me.
How about mom mishaps? Similar concept. It's not a hating of mom. It's telling the times that your mother was incorrect. And just laughing at the stories.
I don't know about that. I don't really like the idea of bashing parents.
I love the idea of bashing parents.
Of course, because your parents were weird. your parents weren't exactly the best examples, would you say?
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
My mom meant well. My dad's just an asshole.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It's time to let go of that bitterness, Bubs. I'm telling you.
That's why I need to do Hate Dad.
No, it's not healthy. I mean, I understand you want to talk about it, but saying that you hate your dad all day isn't exactly...
Well, it would be like a one-off thing, and if it was real successful, I've got enough stories to where we could do it again. Maybe it becomes a monthly thing.
I just don't think it's that healthy, Bub.
I don't know, babes.
Yeah.
I just came up with that as we were talking as an example of.
No, I don't think that would be the best way to express yourself.
Watch, I'll be doing Hate Dad.
And then you're going to get kicked off of it.
Yeah, I'll be kicked off of it.
And then I'm going to be like, oh, you know what?
And then in 3 weeks, you'll hear me raging about how Clubhouse sucks. It'll either be that or I'll do Hate Dad.
And I'll just look at you and say, well, you're the one.
No, it'll either be that or I'll do Hate Dad for like 3 months, and then one day I'll be over here doing it, and I'll be like, we have somebody named Alana who wants to talk about her father for a minute.
No.
Like, let me talk about him and the things he did for a minute. I've got some grievances here.
Well, I think that you have to move past the grievances after a while, and find a way to move forward than go on and on and on about grievances.
I don't want to blow up your spot and get into your dad too much, because I know that that's a whole can of worms, as it is with everybody. But your dad has made some mistakes. We can say that. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there was ever a period of time where you had anger towards him and you decided to write a letter, maybe not send it, but get those thoughts out on paper.
I did not write a letter, but somebody else did.
Another member of your family, let's say. Okay.
I don't want to put her into the conversation.
No, that's fine.
Somebody else did, and I can't remember how well it went over, but she was brave enough to do that.
Nice.
I did not.
Yeah, spoiler alert, when you write letters like that to somebody in your family, it's not going to go over well with them.
No.
But at least you get to get it out of your system.
Right, exactly. At least she can live, at least she can go on knowing that she got out what she felt, and that she doesn't have to hide it anymore. Yes. Now she is, now she released it, and it's over and done with.
And please tell that relative of yours about Hate Dad and give her an invite to read the letter on the air.
Oh, no. This is exactly why I don't want them listening to this.
Okay.
This is exactly why I don't want them to listen to this.
Uh-oh. Why is that?
Well, because, there's just a lot of things that I'm just very private about.
Oh, very good, too.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Alana, let's move off of social media for a little while.
Alana?
Yes. Jaylo, come on.
Okay.
We had pizza last night.
Oh, it was really good, too.
Yes. How did you feel about the experience making it now that you've done a couple of doughs? You're having a few issues, but you got it mostly correct.
I did. I think the hardest thing was that I found was a little bit tedious and difficult was making sure that the dough was at the right consistency, because the dough kept sticking to my fingers. And then I was like, okay, I got to add more flour because this isn't binding. And I'm like, this should not be taking longer than it is, but it's okay though. I got it. And then you helped with moving it more around, and it eventually came together, but it took a while. Took a while.
Have you reconsidered my offer of just giving you my old food processor? It's not the best, but it still gets the job done.
I don't know. I haven't really been thinking about that too much because I don't really see myself making a lot of bread in the near future yet. I'll have to get back to you on that because I really don't know. I don't know.
I did like the pizza though.
It was very good.
Yes.
I still have half of my piece left it was a bit. We had 2 big slices of our pizza. Each. And I finished the first slice and I'm like, wow, this is really filling. And I start eating the second slice and I'm not quite done yet, but I'm like, I think I'm going to save this. This is just a little too much.
Before we started eating, you told me that you were very hungry.
I was hungry. Yes. I was very hungry. Yes. I think if I wasn't in a hurry to eat because I really was hungry, we probably would have been able to put some things in our sauce. But I told you that we were going to do that next time we did it.
I wanted to cook some onions, put some garlic in there, and do it on the stovetop. Make it really nice.
Yes. And I told you that the next time we did it, we would do that.
But we just did the canned method yesterday.
Yeah.
Which works.
Yeah, I did. It was a really good pizza. I really liked your shapes. How were you able to make it round?
It doesn't really transition well on audio, but give me your hands. Okay. What I did was I didn't want to get your counter messy.
Yeah.
So I slammed my two hands together almost like a clapping motion when I had the dough on the bottom hands.
Yeah.
And then I slammed it onto the cookie sheet and kept pounding my hand out like this, which in a circular motion.
Yeah, because it was really nice and round.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were good sized pizzas, and the garlic and the olives and the peppers and the two cheeses just really went well with the pizza.
Good stuff, babes.
It was so good.
Yes, yes.
And it smelled really good when it was coming out of the oven. Mm.
It did.
Yeah. I put on some Dionne Warwick. He was on Clubhouse. I was like, wait. I'm thinking, he's not listening
Was I on Clubhouse? I was on Clubhouse.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. I'm listening to Dionne Warwick, having a good time, and I'm thinking, why is he not listening to this with me? He was on Clubhouse.
At one point, we got up to dance.
One time.
And we danced for like half a song, and you're like, okay, what's
actually, it was 2 songs.
No, babes. What happened was, we got on to the dance floor.
It was half a song.
AKA your living room area. Right as the first song was about to end.
No, it was in the middle.
It was closer to the end.
Okay, well, and then we went into the next song.
And then you're like, okay, time to sit down.
Yes, I had to sit down. I wanted to rest, but then you went back on Clubhouse.
Well, I could literally dance for hours, babes.
Yes, I know, Bubs.
So, doing like a song is like...
Oh, come on.
I'm just getting warmed up here, Jay. Well, the tragedy, babes...
What?
Of this is I don't even remember what Clubhouse room I was in.
Yeah, I could tell you what you were in.
Tell me.
You were in the blind relationship project room.
Oh, that was weird. Yeah, and then I went into some other room and came back to it, right?
Yeah.
What was the other room I went into?
You went into a room where this girl that somebody was asking this girl questions about, and I think she was getting into like music promotion or something.
Yeah, that was really interesting. This
how is it that I remember what rooms you went into and you don't remember what rooms you went into?
It's the same way I can see a movie 70 times and be like, what's Homeboy's name in it? I'm just not good about that stuff. So I go into this thing and I think it's a blind relationship project.
Yes.
But they're talking about the royal family and are they woke enough? And I guess they gave some interview to Oprah, the Prince Harry or William or whatever his name is.
It was Harry.
Okay. So full disclosure, I don't care about the royal family.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate them. I don't love them. I don't feel any way about them.
You think that there's more important things to talk about?
Yeah, I think they're really overhyped. The only thing you could say that I hate them about is I hear too much about them.
Oh.
So when I hear the royal family, I just immediately zone out.
I think I'm not like in love with them, but I don't hate them either. It's interesting to kind of look at, like, hear about what they're going through from the UK perspective and how that would affect the US, if it does affect the US. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but
yeah.
And also too, I remember when and so I wasn't really keeping track of Princess Diana's progress or anything, but my mom, I think I watched her funeral with her. And this is like early in the morning. I can't remember how. It might have been early in the morning, late at night, whatever it was. And she was really moved by it. And I don't know. I think there's something about. I really think that there's something about the royal family that's fascinating to some Americans. I'm not as fascinated, but it is kind of interesting to look at it from another perspective.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Yes.
Remember?
Blasphemous?
No, not blasphemous.
Okay.
Well, maybe the fans of the royal family, but I don't think you'll interpret it this way.
Okay.
Everybody, whenever you hear them talk about Princess Diana, they always say, oh, she's the most beautiful woman ever. She's a queen. She could have been a supermodel.
Well, let me explain something to you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe you don't look at her like that, but let me explain something, okay? Because in the royal family, Queen Elizabeth was the one who ruled the roost.
Gotcha.
She did not like Diana for whatever reason. She did not like her, and in fact, she wanted to do things that other princesses wouldn't do. She would want to reach out to people that normally she wouldn't, especially when it came to AIDS and people coming out with AIDS. She wanted to do that, I believe. And after she and Charles divorced, she could do that because she was no longer living in Buckingham Palace.
But what I'm saying is, you would always hear on the news, Princess Diana is just so attractive.
And I wasn't done with what I was saying, by the way.
You interrupted me.
What?
Go ahead, finish what you were saying.
No, but you... Okay.
I thought you were finished because you took a pregnant pause.
Pregnant pause?
That's what they call it, Viv.
What about an unpregnant pause?
What about an aborted pause? Keep going, Viv.
Well, what I was going to say really quick, and then you can go on, I'm sorry. But I think it's not just that she was physically attractive, but the way that she handled herself in interviews, she was very, from the interviews that I've seen, she was very vulnerable and open, and she seemed like she... like there was one interview that I'll never forget when she said, I want to be the queen of people's hearts, but not everybody would see me that way. And I think that's because of how she was thought of in Buckingham Palace and how she was thought of outside, and how she wasn't considered royalty in Elizabeth's family. Then maybe it's because she just seemed like she was for the people and not just for herself.
Okay. My take on this is...
Yeah.
I don't think she's a supermodel. I thought she was average looking. I don't get the press fawning over her like she's the most attractive thing ever to come out of the world. And, okay, so she helped AIDS kids. Like, most celebrities...
It wasn't AIDS kids, really.
Okay, most celebrities have some charity that is kind of their pet project, and they go and do the press op. I was not impressed with her. I thought her death was overhyped. They reported on it. It was the front news story on every show and newspaper for literally like 3 or 4 months.
Oh, you're gonna get some serious blowback.
Well, I don't care. This is my opinion, babe.
I know. I'm just saying.
I don't get the royal family, and there's some show called The Crown that's popular on Netflix that's about them.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it. I have no desire to watch it. I don't get why people in America would care about that stuff. So when I go into the chat room last night and I hear them talking about the royal family, one, I laughed, but two, because I'm so uninterested, I know that they gave an interview with Oprah, but I don't know what the controversy is about, because as soon as I see a YouTube video that says royal family in fire, I immediately just skip it. So I know that they said something, and it apparently goes against woke culture or something, but I don't know what they said.
I've heard bits and pieces about it, but I've never seen the interview of that. I just heard that there was going to be an interview. I didn't really want to I didn't want to watch it or anything, but I don't know. And didn't you say that it was supposed to be about like blind relationships or something, or? That's
the feeling I got. But it felt like it was more about the royal family.
And it wasn't about blindness.
Yeah, but the music one was pretty cool. They were talking to some lady, and I think she used to work at Def Jam Records, if I'm remembering right.
Really?
They were talking about what it's like, how to get into the record field, and some people there. There's like this one lady who is interviewing for all these different jobs. So it can be a good resource for that. Mm. I think I could bring a lot of fun to that platform. Not the room, but I mean Clubhouse. I don't know if there's a lot of people just having a good time and laughing. But again, I haven't been on it that much. Oh, the other one I was in, babes. And then we're going to move off of this.
Please. We can have a Clubhouse conversation. I wouldn't have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. This actually did seem like fun, but I entered it right before we got ready to eat.
Yeah.
Was Creative Career Happy Hour.
Oh, you told me about it. That sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah, and this writer was talking about she was setting goals, and I think she said her goal for the week was to give 10 examples of her writing to one of her friends to read.
Wow.
And say, be ultra critical about this.
Wow.
I was doing other stuff at the time, so I may have it, a little bit wrong, but that seemed very cool.
So she wanted an honest critique from her friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Anyways, enough about Clubhouse, babes.
Thank you.
We watched an episode of Deep Space Nine before dinner.
Yes, it was really good, too.
Do you want to give the description,
No.
or would you like me to?
I'll let you do it.
Well, first, I screwed up. Let's acknowledge this.
Yes, you did.
I've seen Deep Space Nine a lot of times, and as a result, Netflix reads every episode is already watched. So I got messed up on where we were in the finale.
Oh, yeah, they do that, yeah.
And now I know where we are, but I accidentally clicked episode 24 of season 7. It starts off with somebody saying to Bashir, "How's Odo?" And he's like, "He's okay."
And I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, last we saw him, he was dying. So I'm like, we missed an episode.
Yeah.
We go back, and Odo is basically on his deathbed. Kira comes in and says, "I don't want to leave your side, babe." He's like, "You got to go out and fight, darling."
They didn't call each other that.
No. He's like, "I'm ugly," and she's like, "I don't care how you look, okay?" And she made out with him, straddled him a little bit.
Did she?
No, she didn't straddle him, but she did make out with him, though.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yes. Kira and Garrick leave the station while Bashir is still searching for a cure. Bashir and O'Brien tell Cisco of their plan to lure somebody from Section 31 to the station. Next thing you know, Bashir is woken up in his quarters because this guy Sloan is there. Now, you don't know Sloan, but he's been in a few other episodes, and he's basically the guy who represents Section 31. I honestly don't really like the Section 31 episodes, which is why we didn't watch them.
What was his first name again?
Oh, it was some old time name, wasn't it?
I can't remember what the I forgot what his name was.
But it was.
But they called him Sloan.
Yeah, and Miles, along with Bashir,
it's Luther. His name is
Luther Sloan. That's right.
Yeah.
They basically force him to. They basically kind of kidnap him. And they have these Romulan mind penetrating things that I don't remember the name of. They say, "We're going to get this information about Odo from you." Sloan's like, "No." He arranges for his brain to shut down. So he's kind of like killing himself slowly. Bashir decides to use the Romulan technology to enter his consciousness. O'Brien insists on coming with him. They go into a manifested version of Deep Space Nine, I guess you could say. They run into Luther, go into the ready room, and there's a bunch of people from Sloan's past, or his life, and he says, "I'm going to die soon, this is awful," but
and his wife was there too.
Yeah, and you thought her line was funny when she's like, "Oh, before meeting you, being with him was a living hell."
Yes.
I'm like, that's what he thinks his wife thinks of him. That's saying something.
That was funny.
Yes. They go around the station because Sloan is trying to trick them. Bashir is shot in the mind trap.
Yeah.
And he thinks that this means that he's not going to be able to leave Sloan's body or his consciousness, and they're going to die with him. They get taken out of that, and they can't cure Odo. But Bashir starts reading Charles Dickens.
I can't remember what it was.
I think it's some book. I think it was.
I forgot what it was.
Yeah, but the book starts repeating himself because Bashir didn't finish it, and he realizes that Sloan is now kind of using what he knows about Bashir to create Deep Space Nine. So he eventually gets the info. has to leave some other stuff behind from the Federation, exits, and saves Odo's life, and Sloane dies. What did you think of this episode?
It was a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I wasn't sure if they were, what was going on, whether Sloane was imagining it or if it was actually real.
I will tell you this. I liked it when I watched it with you this time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy it the first couple times I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that this is good Star Trek necessarily, but I think it's good sci-fi, if that makes any sense. Or good, or a good representation of friendship in sci-fi. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't classify it necessarily as good Star Trek. Mm-hmm. So, I don't like the idea of Bashir going into somebody's mind and Deep Space Nine existing. Mm-hmm. That seems really weird to me, and it doesn't work for me. But it's a little bit weird, yeah. What I did like about this episode was the choice Julian had to make between getting all these secrets about the Federation or saving his friends.
Right.
And I enjoyed what he said at the end of the episode to Miles, where he's like, Sloane wasn't counting on one thing, you.
Yeah.
Because Miles was the one who got him to leave all these secrets that Section 31 had created.
Yeah.
Do you think that Miles and Bashir did the right thing by saving Odo and leaving those other secrets behind?
I think they did what they had to do. And I think that they were willing to risk that to save their friend, because they wanted him to live longer. So, yes. There
is a great line in the Star Trek movies. I believe it's The Search for Spock. It might have been the Wrath of Khan. And people listening probably already know what I'm going to say. I think it's the Wrath of Khan. It's been so many years since I've seen this, but Spock says to Captain Kirk, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And to me, that's another reason why this episode doesn't work as Star Trek, but still works as good sci-fi, is because they choose the needs of the one over the needs of the many.
Right.
But it still works for me on some level.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end, babes.
I know. We are.
Yes,
we are.
Is there anything else you want to say about this episode? I know we did a quick recap, but most of it is just about Miles and Julian and Sloane, who you don't really know and I don't really think is an interesting character.
He's not that interesting.
Yeah.
He just, his wife doesn't like him and... yeah. I don't know. So this is the last episode you see him in, Sloane? Because he's dead. Okay.
Yes. Unless we go back and rewatch it, or they brought him back for Discovery, or bringing him back for Picard. As far as I know, this is the end of Sloane.
Wow.
Yes.
So you didn't like the Picard show.
I thought it had some really cool moments, but overall it does not hold up.
So you don't like the new Star Trek shows, but you like the movies?
The movies are very hit and miss with me.
Okay. Which would you say your favorite Star Trek movie was? And I didn't see any of them, so...
As a story...
Yeah.
There's a trilogy that's actually interesting. It's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, followed by The Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home. And it's basically telling one big narrative story across 3 movies. So I couldn't pick one movie. I don't think The Search for Spock is that great, but in the context of those 3 films, it's pretty good. So I would have to say 2 through 4, because it tells one big story.
Okay.
Yeah. How do you feel about my answer?
Well, I don't really have much an opinion, because that's your opinion and I've never seen them, so.
Oh, the Undiscovered Country is pretty good.
Okay.
Star Trek 1 sucks.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it's not worth watching.
Okay.
In my opinion. A lot of people disagree. Star Trek 5 has some interesting stuff as far as religion goes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hold up as a film. the Generations film that they did where they tried to do a crossover
Yeah.
with the original cast
Yeah.
and Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah.
It has some interesting stuff. It's good. I would recommend it, but it's not like a strong recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
The second movie with the TNG cast, it's also good, but it's not great. The TNG movies, none of them is great to me.
Okay.
But there's good stuff in all the films. I know that they got a lot of criticism for the last TNG movie, but I actually really enjoyed that one.
What was the last TNG movie?
Forgot the name of it. I think it's called Nemesis.
Okay.
And they find this Romulan guy whose DNA was mixed with Captain Picard. And it's the one where Data dies. Spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't like that movie. It's not my favorite, but it's better than people say it is.
Okay.
It's not as bad as people say it is, in my opinion.
A lot of the other characters who were in it, the same actors?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Something I don't like about, I think it's that one, is I believe at the end of it they give Geordi his vision.
Wow, why did they just... Wow, really?
I think so, if I'm remembering correctly.
How did he get blind? Become blind?
He was born blind.
Oh, and why did you think it was not necessary for him to have his vision? Just curious.
I feel like in TV shows in general, if you have a disabled character, too often they will try to give them vision. Because they can't
fix it, yeah.
Yeah, they can't let a disabled character just be that way.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a problem not just in Star Trek The Next Generation, but in TV in general.
I have something to say about that too.
Go ahead.
Because I've had encounters with people personally, I've had encounters with people maybe on the street or whatever, and it's happened more than once. They'll look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's physically broken. We have to fix her." Or we want her to be fixed because they think that my life is so meaningless that because of my one disability that I have, then I probably don't do anything, or something to that effect. Like that disabled people, even the ones who have more than one disability, just cannot function. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very sad. It's a stigma behind disability that their lives are just not full and they don't treat them. Some people, not all, but some people grew up in a time where blind people were not able to even leave their house, or wheelchair bound people were thought not to, and then fill in the blank. So it's very sad how our culture sees, how some people in our culture see disability, and especially in other countries. In Asian countries, they don't see people with disabilities as functional either.
I imagine it's worse.
I think it is worse, yes.
What was it like for you being in the Philippines?
They were really nice, actually. I think if I was by myself, it probably might have been different, but I was with my family. And they were nice, actually. I think it really depends on the person, because there are Filipino families that don't want anyone to know about their child's disability, or they have to do everything for them because they're afraid that they're not going to be able to handle it. In fact, I heard a story about this girl who was in college and her father would follow her to class. I couldn't have that happen to me.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? In America, in our country, blind people have the resources so that they can be in class independently. In the Philippines, this father, as I would imagine he meant well, but he didn't know how to handle it, but he would follow his daughter to class and help her with everything. And I'm just like, you're not teaching her to do anything for herself. And because she can't do it, she wouldn't be able to handle it on her own. So my point being is that it's very sad that there are some people still in society that don't think that that think that people with disabilities are not invaluable.
They think that we don't have any value.
Well, not that. Well, some don't, and they also don't think that we can contribute to society.
Do you feel, as a blind person, any sense that it's up to you to change these people's minds?
Yes, of course. I think doesn't matter what disability you have, if any. I think it is important to change is that the right word, stigma attached to it?
Yes.
Yes, the stigma attached to it and people's misconceptions. Even if it's just as small as talking to people that have not been around blind people, and some people are really are naturals at that, and they haven't been around people with disabilities.
That's really weird, but I found that to be the case too.
Yes.
Some people who have no experience with us are just super cool, and other people who maybe even work in the blind community,
they're just clueless.
Just don't get it.
Yes,
and have done
exactly.
so for years, you know.
Or people that have picked up and transported people that were blind or whatever disability it was, and they still can't figure it out. I think it's very interesting, isn't it?
I find it fascinating.
It is very fascinating to me. Yeah. I had a friend, unfortunately, I lost her information, but I asked her one day, this is years ago, I said, "Hey, have you been around a lot of blind people before you met me?" And she said, "No." I said, "You're kidding." She's like, "No, I haven't." I'm like, "You are such a natural at this. You just have a knack for it. I mean, I would not have known that you never met a lot of blind people in your life because you just have a knack for it." So I had to compliment her because she really does.
That's good stuff, babes.
It is. But anyway, I think I'm off my soapbox now.
No, I actually really enjoyed that. And partially it's because, listen, when you start talking about Republicans, I'm not that interested. But you're talking about something that affects me.
Right.
You know, so I can relate to that feeling. And it's so strange because I also feel like we're giving these really weird dualities as blind people. For example, we're always told that blind people, there's like over a 70% unemployment rate. And there's so many things that you can't do. And we're told this from a young age. And people come up to us and say, "You can't do anything."
Yes.
But then we're also giving these books telling us about the greatness that blind people have done.
Yes.
And it's this weird contradiction that we live in. And it also feels like, in some ways, if we're not doing something incredible, like, oh, I don't know, learning how to drive as a blind person.
Yeah.
Or, you know, running into a burning building and saving 10 kids in a single night. Like, we're not living up to the standard.
And I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's very wrong.
There should be a place just to be a regular person.
Right. And I mean, like, if it was just a sighted person, yeah, they would get accolades and awards. But if it was a blind person doing something like that, saving somebody from a burning building, I mean, it would be a step up. But it's like, well, do you kind of feel like people expect us to prove ourselves a lot?
I think so, and it comes out in different ways. Like some of it comes like, we want you to prove that you're as helpless as we believe you are. And other people, it's like, well, I enjoy Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, so show me that you can play music as well as they can.
And they have such misconceptions like blind people are all musically talented. Blind people's ears are better than everybody else's. Blind people are just the most inspiring people in the world, or maybe some of them, one of the most inspiring people in the world.
That's not always the case.
That's not always the case. And it's like, why can't there be a happy medium? You know, that like blind people from all different backgrounds that have different socioeconomic statuses that are trying to get through life as best as they can, just like how a sighted person would. But we have challenges like everybody else does.
Yeah.
But we just want to be us.
Yeah, we just want to do our things.
Here's something I just thought of. Go on with your thought, and I'll...
Well, one of the things, and we haven't gotten there yet, but I did like about the documentary Standing in the Shadow of Motown.
Yes.
The piano player was saying, I taught Stevie Wonder some stuff, and like a year later, he didn't need me. But whenever you hear somebody talk about Stevie Wonder, they will almost always bring up the fact that he was blind.
I know.
So I was completely expecting this guy to follow that sentence up with, I think it's because of his blindness that he was able to figure that. But he didn't do that.
I'm glad he didn't do
that. And I really appreciated that.
I'm glad he said he didn't need me. In other words, he knew how to do it.
But it was more than he didn't need me. It wasn't like, because it was a musical thing, it wasn't like he didn't need me because of his blindness. He was able to,
Right. I'm glad that he didn't bring it up because I thought he was going to, because I only watched it once before I watched it with you. And I was like, I'm glad he didn't bring up the fact that he was blind.
It always gets me that whenever somebody brings up Stevie Wonder, this exception aside, they always have to bring it back to blindness.
Well, even blind people themselves, they'll bring things up like, I don't know, someone, I'm not going to mention who this person is, but I overheard someone say something like, oh, well, Stevie Wonder's, about Stevie Wonder's, what is it, social skills or whatever it is. And I'm like, who cares? Who cares? Just
enjoy the music.
Enjoy the music. Appreciate the fact that he can make music and just go on with your life.
He might not be a nice guy. I don't know. I've heard mixed things about him, honestly.
I have.
But you don't know him, so just enjoy the music.
Exactly.
Read the book that trashes him when he's dead. But for now, just listen to the records.
Someone's going to write a book about it.
I'm sure.
Okay, so here's my question, and I just thought about it just a few minutes ago. Do you find that when you, and I was just thinking about this, do you find that when you talk to another person with a disability and you don't know anything about this disability, do you find that you're kind of reverting back to asking questions, just like the same kind of questions that people ask you?
That's a very good question. Mm-hmm. I have definitely been guilty about that in the past. Mm-hmm. One of the things I do now is if I start to notice myself going down that road, I stop and I say to the person, I don't want to be offensive. I know how it is being a person with a disability, maybe not your specific one. So please stop me if I'm acting like one of those people who has no experience with this. I don't. And I'm only asking these questions because I want to know you. But if it feels like I just want to know your disability, interrupt me and feel free to call me out on it.
I've never asked a question like that. I just kind of had conversations, but I always wanted to know certain things. Like, I've never met somebody that didn't have any arms or legs. And in fact, I've never met somebody like that. I've met people in wheelchairs that still had their arms, but I always had some questions about people that had no arms and legs because I use my arms and legs all the time, and do they have prosthetics? But I always was thinking, like, is it okay to ask these questions because I really don't know? Because I know how I feel. I know how I feel when people ask like the stupidest questions, and I think to myself, why did you ask that? Are you really wanting to know about me, or do you just want to ask these stupid questions because you really have no idea? You're just very ignorant. So I kind of feel like, when should I ask these questions? Because I really don't know.
It depends on the situation. For example, if you don't really know somebody, but you kind of run into them outside, maybe keep the questions to a minimum.
Yeah.
But if you have a friend with another disability and you're just casually having a conversation, you can pepper it in. Like, I have able-bodied friends who I hang out with on occasion. And my blindness comes up in the conversation. And occasionally they'll ask a question, well, how do you do this or that? But it's not like when I get together with them, I feel it's going to be 2.5 hours of just hearing questions about my blindness. It comes up, but it's not the main focus.
Right. But sometimes, and I've never had that opportunity to ask a person a question because I either see them once or maybe I see them very rarely or whatever. It doesn't matter who it is. But what was I going to say? I'm trying to figure out a way to handle when people bring up my blindness, like in the beginning of the conversation, and say things like kind of condescendingly, like, oh, you did so well for yourself, or you come a long way. And I'm thinking, how do I handle that? Because I know how I feel. And I'm just like, I can't believe you just said that.
I'll give you, a couple ways I've handled it.
Yeah, because I don't want to be rude, but I also want to make it known that that's not how I live.
Sometimes I am rude about it. Sometimes I'll just walk away or whatever.
Yeah.
But I want to state, as I get older, I try to be a nicer person.
Yeah.
And not just some asshole who gets offended at everything, right? Mm-hmm. One thing I might do is make a joke about it. So, like, if they say, well, how did you become blind? There's the obvious one. Well, I spent too much time looking at my dad's Hustler magazines. Right? You could do that. Or sometimes I'll say, oh, it's a long story. Tell me about you. And then I'll try to flip it back to them. Mm-hmm. Now, if I can't make a joke about it, if they're not getting it, or if they keep wanting to talk about my blindness and it feels like it's only that, then I'll leave the situation fairly quickly.
Okay.
Because there's no need for me to go on about that. But at least now I try to give them the out to lead to us talking about something else.
Well, like, for example, if you're in, let's just say, like, if you're in a Lyft car and somebody brings it up.
I can actually give you, that actually happened to me once.
Really?
I'll tell you what happened.
Okay. I don't remember you telling me this, by the way.
I don't think I did.
Yeah.
I was in Boulder. Mm-hmm. And I was coming back to Portland. This is years ago. Mm-hmm. It was me and a friend. We were both blind. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're headed to the airport. We get in the Lyft. And it was either Uber or Lyft. I think it was Uber, actually. But not that matters.
Doesn't matter.
Immediately, the guy starts asking us questions about our blindness.
Yes.
And my friend is kind of like me in that sense. She doesn't want to talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Plus, it was early in the morning. I knew that he was really tired, and so was I. So I made some joke. We're not getting off it. And then I hear that he's listening to like sports radio. So I say, oh, I couldn't help but noticing that. Tell me about what sports are you into? I don't know anything about sports. Uh-huh. I'm a dummy when it comes to that.
Yes.
So he starts talking to me about it. Turns out the guy used to host his own sports talk show on the East Coast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was a really interesting story about how he was a fan. And first he worked a regular job, and he would go to these conferences that the sports teams would have. And I'm ignorant about sports, obviously, so I don't remember if it was football, basketball, or whatever. And he would just try to like photobomb the picture, so like run into the picture with the players and whatnot. So then that got me asking, well, what did your boss think about that at the time? He said, oh, my boss was cool with that. He was into sports too.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, well, what did you do after that? He said, well, I really like sports. So I started running out time at these local AM stations during the weekend.
Yes.
And I got so good that they hired me. So I switched it slowly to become about him. Now, you can't do that all the time. And obviously, I'm giving you an extreme example to where I switched the conversation and the guy turned out to have a very interesting story. But it also is a story about something that actually happened to me. I was in the car with this guy who at the beginning did just want to talk about blindness. Yes. And I was able to shift the conversation.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have not figured out a way to do that.
Another thing you could try doing is, I'll do this sometimes when I get in a Lyft or an Uber. Mm-hmm. I'll go in there and I'll act like I'm tired already.
Yes.
So that way, if they start to ask questions, I could give them a yeah, I sold my dad's Hustlers. And it kind of gives them the cue that maybe that you don't want to talk.
You are very good at that.
Yes,
With the yawning. It's very convincing.
Thank you there, Jay. Well, so those, I don't know if that helped you at all.
No, it certainly does, because I've gotten into situations where this happened to me. I forgot where I was going. I might have been meeting you, actually. I was on a bus, and I was alone with the bus driver. I don't believe she's been around a lot of blind people. I can't even remember her name. She was telling me about how she's moving and telling about her family life and everything and how it's kind of in chaos right now. But she was talking to me, and I said, oh yeah, I lived here and lived here and lived here. And she's like, well, you've you've really come a long way. And my instinct was to say a joke like, oh yeah, I walked from my house all the way to the bus. Yeah, I walked from the door all the way to my seat. That's wonderful, And I wanted to make a joke out of it, but it never came out. And I'm kind of wondering if I should do that I also don't want to sound like I'm sarcastic.
Yeah.
Because sarcasm
it's not for everybody.
Not for everybody. Yeah. And I wanted to make a joke like, yeah, I dress myself and feed myself too,
Oh.
But I didn't want to make somebody feel bad for thinking that way either, even if it did irritate me.
You could also try like the alternate identity thing. So like if somebody says you've come a long way, you start talking about, well, Daddy got me the maid and she was able to help me out a lot. And, she also picked up my clothes for me this morning and Mom thinks that I really don't need the personal helper anymore. So we cut her hours back and that's why she's not on the lift with me today. I don't know. I've never done that.
My mother thinks I'm a princess and that I should marry rich.
Yes. I'm going to meet Stevie Wonder next week.
Ray Charles, the Ray Charles singers are going to sing at my next birthday party.
Yes.
If they're still alive.
Yes.
I have to look into that. No, I'm just kidding. It's.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see if they actually buy it.
Or if they say, well, what do you do for a living? You could say, I show cocaine.
No. No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh.
No.
Yes. I hope that was helpful for you, babes.
It was.
Very good.
Now,
apparently they're making some movie called Cocaine Bear that Elizabeth Banks is going to direct. I told you about this yesterday.
You told me the premise, and I'm like, what are they going to...
And I actually wasn't joking, but we couldn't find any information on the dot about it. But she was acting weird, too. Like
I know.
She was telling us that thing about John Candy.
Yeah, the wrong date. But then we were talking about... What movie was it?
I said there's no way he died on January 7th, 1995, because his last movie was Wagons East.
Yeah, we were looking at information about Wagons East, and it said that he died in August.
No, it said the movie came out in August, but he died during the filming of it, which I knew, so that's why I went to that movie.
Yeah, so it said that in 1994, but then when I asked about when John Candy died, I heard January something 95. I'm like, that's not 7th.
Right. That mofo must have been a time traveler or something.
Right.
Yes. You never saw, I know we're going a little bit off topic, but I just saw someplace online the other day, Who is Harry Crumb? Where he's this investigator.
Harry Crumb or Arthur Crumb?
No, Who is Harry Crumb, the John Candy movie from the 90s.
Oh, no, I don't think I seen it, but
okay.
You said it was good.
Yeah, it came into my mind the other day. But anyways, we saw 2 films last night.
We did.
And we started out with a film about Roger Ebert, a man who I have been a fan of since childhood, called Life Itself. And it's adapted from his book, which I read the day it came out and really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Do you want me to... See, it's kind of hard to give a description of a documentary. I could point out some highlights if you want.
Why don't you point out your highlights? I'll point out my highlights, because I have a lot of highlights to point out.
Oh, good. So do I. It tells a story about, him growing up and where he was. So the filmmaker started work on the documentary, I believe, 5 months before he died. He had some footage of Roger Ebert in the hospital, along with him going back home and his wife Chaz talking, both before and right after his death, which ends the movie when he dies. But there were some interesting stories about his life. For example, it talked about how Roger Ebert was a big alcoholic and how his friends in the early days before he met his wife Chaz thought that he had horrible taste in women. They were either gold diggers or psychos. He knew some ladies of the night. It's implied that he bought a hooker for one of his friends, right?
Yeah, and then he says, take care of her.
He was always holding court for people at the local bar. It talked about how the Chicago Sun-Times was a newspaper for the working class, right?
Mm.
And the Chicago Tribune was the sort of higher class newspaper that you would get if you were rich.
Yeah.
Now that is important because Ebert worked for the Times and Siskel worked for the Tribune.
Yeah.
And I actually I've read more of the Tribune than I have the Chicago Sun-Times.
Okay.
I've actually read a fair amount of the Tribune. But
yeah.
in any event, they did not want to work together on the show. It talks about their friendship. There's a lot more. I feel like I'm starting to ramble, so maybe you should give some examples.
I really like when they show the bloopers.
That was fun.
There.
That was great. I wasn't sure if you were going to like that or not.
No,
but
I thought it was funny because we have to do it again.
Because you messed it up.
We have to do it again because you messed it up. And when they show clips of them arguing, and how Jean's widow was saying, Roger was such a big baby when he didn't get his way, but when Jean didn't get his way, he was just, what did she say? He was
I forgot.
He would argue people into submission until he got his way.
Yeah, and I like how they said, you guys just think that they argued about film. No, they would argue about their ties. They would argue about where are we going to eat. They would just argue about anything.
And but they finished that by saying, but it was, it was evident that they loved each other anyway.
I actually believe that's true. Like, usually I'm the guy who questions that.
Yeah.
But I believe that these guys genuinely cared about each other.
They have a different kind of a
relationship.
A love, yeah.
Yeah.
A different kind of love that only men would share.
Only close men, too.
Only close men would share, yeah.
I wish that they would have had this in the movie. It's on his website.
Yeah.
At one point, he wrote a tribute to Gene Siskel. Mm-hmm. I'm really surprised they didn't include it in there. It talked about how when Roger first goes to buy a home, he said that Gene Siskel, he invited him over and he said he wasn't going to buy the house unless Gene Siskel gave him the okay.
Okay.
About what house to buy. And I thought, to me, that was so interesting when I read that.
Yeah.
I was shocked that it wasn't in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also liked how Roger, when he was using the Alex voice, how he was saying that Chaz is the love of his life and how she really did love him. And I also liked when Chaz was saying, when he was at his worst and he was coming home from the hospital after so many surgeries, right? Mm-hmm. And his bout with cancer, and she said, she's like, I know it's hard, but you have to do this because I know you can do it. And so she was not giving up on him.
You could tell that she loved him.
You could tell that she really loved him, because if she didn't love him, she would have said, okay, just, die on the stairs if you want, right?
Yeah.
But she said, I know you can do it. And she wasn't going to give up on him. And she said that he wrote him a note. He wrote a note that said, kill me. And she said, nope, that's not an option. I am not going to give up on you. And I thought, what a great woman, what a great wife that he had, that was, holding him up when he couldn't do it.
You know what really touched me, babe, related to that?
Yeah.
Is when they showed the home movies of him and her out on the family vacations.
Uh-huh.
Because Roger, to the best of my knowledge, did not have any biological children. But Chaz had kids before they got married.
Yeah.
And they would go on these vacations with her kids and the grandkids. And when it was talking about, my grandson said that there was no such thing as getting up early. So we used to both get up early and meet in the hotel lobby before anybody else was up and just go on these walks. That really touched me for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And was Chaz his only wife?
I believe so. I could be wrong, but I think so.
But she was just a really, even when her, I think it was her niece, she was helping too.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like the people that were around him just really, really genuinely loved him. They did not they would just laugh at what he would say. I think he would sign things, right?
He would sign things sometimes, but you got the sense that it was genuine. Like, they weren't just laughing to make him feel good.
And they really liked being around him.
Yeah.
And how Chaz was able to communicate with him. And she's like, no, I know you're having a hard time. And remember when he was trying to plug in his speakers and she's like, can we set this up later?
You could tell that she was a little bit annoyed by
that. Roger, can we set
And he just continued to plug in the speakers. He was ignoring her. That's right. See, that's why that scene is so great, because it shows that you could be a disabled person and still ignore your spouse, just like a regular guy would.
No, what was really so hard to see was when he was going in for his neck surgery,
yes.
and she was just falling apart. And she said, I know that it's going to be fine, but, I know he's going to come out of it and he's going to be fine, but I'm not okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, I'm glad that they let her be so vulnerable, because she was really having a hard time with watching her husband in pain.
We'll get to the death scene soon, but
yeah.
Something else that struck me about her was she said that they met in AA,
mm-hmm.
right? And that she thought Roger was cool because when they met, he was 300 pounds.
Yes.
And he didn't care about it.
Yeah. He's like, he just didn't care. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it sounds like they really had a true romance.
It does.
I mean, she was willing to stick with him for better or for worse. And, what a really great lady she seemed.
I wonder, though, something that struck me, too, is he seems very cool and open.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder about acceptance, because when they're talking about getting married,
yeah,
she's black and he was white, and she said that he may have said in the planning of their wedding, some of my relatives may not be cool with it because you're Catholic. And she's like, no, we got to be honest with each other. They might not be cool with it also because I'm black. It's like,
was she a Catholic or was he a Catholic?
I think he was just saying that joking.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe he grew up as a Catholic. I don't remember, but I don't think that he was into the.
Did they mention that in the documentary?
They do, but I just don't remember.
Okay, because I was wondering if. I was wondering if his parents. I mean, I don't know when they got married, or if his parents, or not parents, but relatives had a hard time with an interracial marriage, which they should not have.
That was sort of the implication that they might, and she was saying eventually people came around.
Okay.
So that was really interesting, because you don't really hear people talk about that honestly. And they were joking around when they said it, but you could tell that it was so heartfelt. So
I know this is kind of off topic, but I wanted to mention it. I heard that in the black community, and it's really, really sad, that if a black man married a white woman, or especially if a black woman married a white man, right, they're stigmatized as, well, why aren't you marrying any of the brothers in our community?
Yeah.
Why you can't find a brother of your own? But if a black man marries a white woman, it's fine. And there's a stigma behind it. It's really sad.
There is. And she addresses that not exactly the same way, but a little bit when she's talking about how, I grew up marching with Martin Luther King, I always thought I'd marry a black guy because they've had such a rough go of it from society. And then she says that she was talking to her mother after Roger proposed to her, and the mom's like, well, if you feel good about it, then that's all that matters. Yeah. Yeah. That's good, though. Yeah. That's good.
So yeah, I mean, it's very sad, how that there is a stigma attached in the black community when in a lot of ways we've come so far, but
I think there's also a stigma attached in the white community too.
It might be, there might be, I don't know, but I know in the black community there is.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of stuff, and it's really a sad thing.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, I digress.
Back to the movie. There's a lot of other cool stuff in here, I like the line where he says, I've spent 9 months of my life living in Boulder, Colorado, 1 week at a time. Wow. Because he used to go to the Conference on World Affairs.
Yeah.
Which I'm ashamed to say, babes, I never went to it.
Really?
I didn't even know about it until the last year I was in
World
Denver.
affairs meaning like political world affairs?
Just in general. So
In general?
He, if you remember, he said that he talked to some foreign minister there about masturbation. And he asked Ted Turner at the Conference of World Affairs, how could you get so many things right and colorization wrong? You know.
Yeah. So this is something this is segueing to what I wanted to say.
Tell me.
One of the things I thought was interesting is when people would listen to Roger speak for about 4 or 5 hours, but it was never dull.
Yes.
It was always interesting. And, and usually you would listen to someone for 4 or 5 hours and you wonder, when it is over. But somebody said, one of his friends said, yeah, well, actually Roger was really interesting. And he made people laugh.
I like that example they give about one day he was hosting a screening of a film or examining it. And somebody raised their hand and said, I think Porky's is a good film, and who are you to be up here on stage? And he says, first of all, the guy who owns my newspaper thinks that I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And second of all,
would you listen to you?
Would you listen to you?
That was great.
Yes.
That was such a brilliant comeback. It's like, first off, who are you to tell me why I shouldn't be here? Would you listen to you? I bet that shut this person up right away.
Yes.
Okay, I'll shut up now. You made your point. I get it.
What did you think? Going back to Gene Siskel for a second.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you learned that Roger knew he was sick, but he didn't know that he was close to dying?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't thought of it. Wow. And the fact that he died so young.
Yeah.
53.
That's crazy to me.
That is really crazy.
And it shaped how he experienced his own illness because it caused him to realize that he wanted to be open if he ever became sick and not hide it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that.
What do you think? Oh, I just heard somebody fought. And
no, I did not.
What was that noise? Did you hear that noise?
I don't know what that was.
Oh, so you don't.
I don't.
My nose is under attack.
Hey, I really did not do that.
You heard that noise, though, right?
I thought I heard a popping sound, but I don't know what it was. It wasn't me.
It definitely wasn't me.
It might have been you.
No, it wasn't.
Whoops.
Okay, let's get back to the movie. Enough of you fawning it up.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did not.
Sure.
Let's
get back to the movie.
Thank you.
This film to me is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to go out and live life because Roger Ebert's last few years seem very painful to me as an outsider. But learning about him, I get the sense that he lived life to the fullest when he could.
He said that something that, and when we look from the outside in, we think he's depressed because he's hurting all the time, right? But he came out and said in his blog that he wasn't depressed.
We knew that he was in the end, though, because
yes.
when Chaz gave the last interview, she talked about it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, how does this film make you think about what you want your life to be post-pandemic?
I may not do the same things that Roger Ebert has done, but I want to do anything I can to make my life fuller, whether it's learning something different every month or every few months, or being curious enough to research a topic that I don't know about, or trying to get into an ensemble if possible. Something that I know that I would like to do. How has this documentary affected you and how you think about your own life?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. This documentary just being one of them. Mm-hmm. But it makes me feel like I need to really go for things after this is over. And it's not that I haven't before. Mm-hmm. I mean, I put out an EP. I've done a little bit of traveling here and there. Mm-hmm. Some people in my life would say that I have really gone for the brass ring, even if I haven't been successful.
I think you've done more stuff than I have, but...
Oh, yes. But I need to be more like that when things start to reopen up.
I also feel like showing more appreciation for the people in my life. Not that I don't, but really, really keeping people close, if as possible. Making sure that they know that I love them.
Because Roger Ebert had friends that he knew for decades and decades, it seemed like.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
What does this film teach us about the importance of music?
Very well. I've always said, music is one of the most wonderful gifts that God has ever created, and I'm glad that He is an appreciator of music. I mean, as known by the speaker scene, right? It's great, and I think the music was wonderful in this documentary.
I'm actually thinking about something else.
What's that? Well, I wasn't sure because you didn't specify.
Okay. Maybe the importance of music and randomness. For example, there's one point in the film where he's talking about how, I went through the surgery, I was getting ready to leave the hospital, and then I just decided to play this song that Chaz and I really like called I'm Your Man by Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
Playing the song is very long, and in the middle of it, I start squirting out blood.
Oh.
There's nurses and doctors all around, and they rush me into the surgery.
Yeah.
And it comes out that Chaz kind of speculates that if it wasn't for that long song, they would have been away from the doctors when he started bleeding and probably would have died then.
Okay.
And something that came to my mind when I was watching it, when Leonard Cohen was in the studio making I'm Your Man, he could have easily made it like a 2-minute song.
Yeah.
Right? And if he would have done that, Roger Ebert would have been dead years earlier.
True.
Do you ever think about stuff like that?
Well,
I don't just think about whether or not he would have been listening to it. I also think about whether or not Leonard Cohen would have made that song as long, how that would have affected things.
I don't know that it's dependent on Leonard Cohen making that song. I think it's like, having the song there at the right time, not even knowing it was the right time, right? Because he was going to go home, right?
Yep.
Now, had he not put that song on, like you said, I think it was just the right moment that song was needed. Not that it had anything to do with not that the lyrics had anything to do with what was going on, but
the length of the song is what I'm saying.
No, I know that. I know
Okay.
that. That's where I'm getting.
Go ahead.
But that was just enough time for him to get help from the doctors to go into surgery. So, it was just there at the right moment, I think.
But you don't think about what if Leonard Cohen would have made this a quick song?
I don't think so.
I always speculate.
I don't think it's dependent on how long the song was.
They said it was.
No, I know, but I know they said it was, but this is just my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm glad it was as long as it was, so that they could get Roger situated, and they were able to listen to it. But yeah, I don't know. I never really thought about the length of it. I just think it was there at the right time, and they used the length of the song wisely.
Nice.
That's how I see it.
I know that you watched the show growing up, but it was very passive. Like if you might see it like a couple, like maybe twice a year, right? Siskel and Ebert. Am I correct?
I don't know if it was twice a year. I would just like flip channels and watch a little bit of it, but I wasn't like really into it or anything.
Right. So you've obviously heard me talk about Siskel and Ebert because as a film fan growing up in the 90s, I don't see how I could not bring them up at some point.
Uh-huh.
And one of his friends has this really cool line in the movie where he says something to the effect of, it's kind of like watching a sitcom about two guys who live in a movie theater. That really struck me as cool. But
yeah,
what I'm wondering from you, what did you think of Roger Ebert before watching this documentary, and how do you feel about him now?
Well, I mean, this just proves that when you see a personality on TV, it can be very deceiving because you had your own ideas about what Roger Ebert, how you thought Roger Ebert was.
Yeah,
right?
I thought he was just a stuffy old guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I just thought it was just about, two guys, critiquing movies, and I didn't really think much about him. But I did hear little bits and pieces about him having problems with cancer. So I guess that this documentary was a really good glimpse into how his life was before that happened, and how they went back and forth with what he used to look like, and then now he's in the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. So before and after. And when I heard bits and pieces of it, I thought, wow, this guy must be an amazing guy to be going through this. And after watching this documentary, it was a confirmation of that.
Does watching this film make you want to read any of his books, some of which are on Bard?
I don't know. It's possible. I don't know. Maybe. Not too sure on that yet.
Yeah, I like his stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get back to race for a minute. And the only reason I want to go there,
okay,
there's this really cool story in the documentary about this black woman who met Roger Ebert when she was 8 years old because her aunt took them to the pre-party to the Oscars. Uh-huh. And she took a picture with Roger, and in it they're both giving these thumbs up.
Yeah.
When she was 34, she made a movie about her aunt, and Roger Ebert reviewed it. Uh-huh. And she sent a photo to him, and he wrote this loving thing about his family.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, she says, when you are a filmmaker, especially a black one, and you hand your film over to a white person and say, you're going to be a big factor on whether or not people talk about this film.
Yeah.
You have to worry. And she said there were a lot less worries about that with Roger. And I'm wondering, do you feel as a woman, or as a Filipino, I know you don't like to go into race too much, which is fine.
No.
Do you ever feel like when you present your art, you have to be mindful about who you're presenting it to?
As far as race goes?
As far as race, or as far as just culturally, maybe somebody doesn't understand the flute.
No, I don't, because I'm looking at this from a person with a disability, more than a person that's a woman of color, if that makes any sense.
That does.
Okay? Because, they'll see my skin color, they'll see my hair, but then they'll see my blindness, first and foremost. And that's the thing that comes to their minds as the way that I see it. That's probably the first thing that comes to their mind when they see my cane. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I'm letting people listen to me play, if I'm playing in front of strangers, as a person with a disability, but not as a woman of color. Nice. It doesn't matter if it's a black audience, a white audience, a mixture. It doesn't matter to me.
So you're more concerned with how your visual loss will come about or will be perceived than how your art will be perceived by people of different.
Yes, exactly. Nice. Are they going to think, well, wow, that's so cool she can do that? Or are they going to think, wow, this person really has talent?
Yes.
Not just that she's, and despite the fact that she has a disability, she is as talented as anybody else is.
That's awesome, babes.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good.
What did you think of the way this movie ends with his wife, Chaz, talking about his last day in the hospital and how he signed this order about don't take any extraordinary measures, but he waited until he knew that she wasn't around to do it because he would have objected to it.
It's very hard. I don't know if he talked to her. It sounds like he didn't talk to her about it.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah. It would have been good if he talked to her about it, but I understand why he did it.
Yeah.
Now, I personally, if I was in a state like that, I wouldn't want to suffer and I would want to go when it's time for me to go. Just letting you know that. And
I'm completely on the same page.
I don't want to suffer through that if I'm ready to go. Just letting you know that for anyone who...
I will play this at the emergency room for your mom.
Okay. But I mean, it would have been. I'm sure that maybe after all was said and done, she probably might have been a little miffed at him. But I think after all that was said and done, she was like, "Well, he's right. I would have objected to it. So I have to accept it."
This is another example too of how much this couple loved music.
Yeah.
Because what does she do when she finds out that he's not going to be around? She puts on some Dave Brubeck and grabs
Dave Brubeck, yes, and grabs his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they play a clip of Take 5.
Yes.
Whether or not that was a Dave Brubeck song that was playing.
That was Dave Brubeck, wasn't it?
No. The actual song that was playing when he was dying.
I'm assuming that
that might have been.
Only because they played it in the movie, and I know that the filmmaker was somewhat close to Roger Ebert.
Yeah, the Dave Brubeck 5 is just great stuff.
I need to go deeper with them because I really only know that song.
The only song I know besides Take 5 is the one called Blue Rondo a la Turk.
Oh, that one I do know too.
And that's the song that's also used to, that's also a song that's also used as an example to show what 5/4 time is.
Yes. I was in a band and that song used to get played. I was not on that song.
Great song.
I remember the other thing I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
They talk in and now this is something that I wasn't aware of.
Okay.
Before watching the documentary or reading the book, that Roger Ebert would befriend filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in some senses, it was cool because... Actually, let me take this topic one by one. Okay. Let's talk about what they did for some filmmakers.
Yes.
They talk about this example. I think it was a movie called Gates of Heaven.
Yes, Gates of Heaven.
And they interviewed the director who said, I released this movie during a writer's strike. So as a result, nobody from New York reviewed my movie. And I thought it was just going to come and go because of that. Mm-hmm. But Siskel and Ebert advocated for this picture, and they found an excuse to review it 3 times. Because of that, the film got national exposure, and it's why I still have a career today.
Wow.
So, and I think that they probably did a lot more of this, where they would advocate for smaller films.
Oh, speaking of filmmakers, and I forgot to bring this up, you know that Martin Scorsese was also in the documentary.
Yes, and we are actually going to get there.
Yes, okay.
Because that's going to relate to the next thing.
Yes.
But first, what does this film teach us about being in the corner of lesser known artists? Or just some people in general who maybe don't get as much respect as they should?
I think it says a lot that Roger Ebert was giving them notoriety when they didn't get a lot of notoriety.
And Gene Siskel, too.
And Gene Siskel, yeah. I think it's great.
Yeah. All right, now let's get to the Scorsese stuff.
Yes.
They say in the movie that Roger was friends with all these filmmakers, like Werner Herzog, Michael Moore, and Martin Scorsese, who they interviewed for the documentary. Mm-hmm. They also show Ebert giving a bad review to The Color of Money, which was a Scorsese film.
Yep.
It seems like he was able to straddle those lines of being friends with somebody and still being an impartial film critic.
Yeah.
But how difficult do you think that is for most people to judge somebody's work if they actually know them?
Oh yeah, I think that would be very hard. They would be like, well, I don't want to be too hard on this person, but Roger was willing to be hard on Martin, and that may have been a good thing for Martin.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't want to give too much away, so I'll try to wrap it up with this.
Okay.
A couple of last questions. What would you give the score on a scale from 1 to 10?
I would definitely give it an 8.
Nice. I would agree with that.
Yes.
And would you recommend it to anybody who you actually know?
Yes, especially if they're in the movies. Yes. Not just you, because you saw it before I did, obviously. But anyone who's like a serious movie buff.
Do you know anybody like that besides me?
I know people who like movies, but I don't know anyone who's like a movie buff. That's a good question. I don't know.
Is there anything else you want to say about the film?
No. You guys go see it. The music is awesome. It's It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. Oh, it'll make me cry, but it might make you cry.
And it'll make you want to live your life more. That's the thing that I really took away from it. Roger Ebert lived his life.
And he said to Chaz that, you know what? I lived a beautiful life. It's time for me to go.
Mm-hmm.
When it was time for him to go, it was time for him to go. It makes you realize your potential.
That's a good way of putting it.
It makes you realize that you have potential and you can use your potential to the fullest.
I agree, babes.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the other movie we saw.
Okay. This one, so can I go and talk about this one?
You can start it off. I will say at the beginning it's not bad.
Okay.
But I have some issues.
We both have issues with it. Now, I saw it once before I showed it to you, and I said, I hope you like this, because it was a while since I've seen it. I did remember, and I should have told you, I should have warned you, that there was a cover band that was performing in front of an audience, and I really wish I would have explained it, but this movie is about a group called the Funk Brothers.
It's called Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
Yes. And how they didn't get noticed because they were playing backup for big groups like from the Supremes to the Four Tops. Both wonderful groups. And they were a part of the Motown sound. That's how they made it like that. And that's why they sounded so good, because they got the best musicians around. So I love that they go into how, where these musicians came from, how, the drummers that were playing, and how one of the drummers was known for locking the sound and, really, making the intro noticeable, right? I liked that part of it. I also liked some of the stories they told about when they were on the road, and I liked how they were kind of getting into their lives and what was going on at the time, and where they met at Studio A and what kinds of things went on in Studio A, and that all the musicians wanted to go to Studio A because that's where they were cranking hits and into 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, right? So,
yeah, they talked about how some days they would work for 14 hours straight,
right,
with just these different acts around Motown.
Yes. So that was good. That was really good. Would you like to go on?
A story from the film I really liked. There was a piano player named James Jamerson, was it?
James Jameson was on James Jameson. Yep.
Jameson.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Gaye is recording What's Going On. Great song, great album. And he really wants the Jamerson sound.
Yeah.
Jamerson isn't really at Motown anymore. Marvin Gaye goes down to the club where he's working at, finds him, convinces him to come to the studio. We get the impression that Jamerson was drunk or high. He sits down on the ground, lies down.
No, he's on a stool.
I thought he lied down.
No. He goes on top of that high stool because
gotcha.
He thinks he's going to fall off. So what he does is he reclines on the stool. I think he either lies on the ground or reclines on the stool, and he plays lying down.
That's what I was about to say. He lied down, and I thought it was on the floor.
I don't remember them saying that. But anyway, okay. He found a way to lie down and play on the piano.
He found a way to lie down and play on the piano. And I thought
that was very great.
Telling the story. And they said that he played better lying down and out of his mind, either drunk or high, than most people could do regularly.
Which is very interesting.
Yes.
But he really did have a problem. And it was affecting a lot of what he did. So did Benny Benjamin.
Was he wasn't the guy who almost told the waiter that he played on the song, right?
Yes, it was. But
Yeah.
he was very embarrassed.
That was a sad story.
That was very sad because he didn't.
So he's at this restaurant having breakfast with a friend of his.
Yeah.
And I heard it through the grapevine was on the radio. It was one of the old Motown hits.
Yeah.
And he turns to the waiter and he's like, "Can I tell you about the song?" And he's like, "No." And then the
I
guy
want the
goes
barbecue
away.
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the waiter goes away and he tells his friend that the waiter wouldn't have believed me if I told him because I'm just some old man.
It's so
That
sad.
was really sad.
It was sad because, I mean, if you're happy with your work, because I think he played the tom-toms on, I heard it through the grapevine, and that was one of the things that really made it, really made it good, was the tom-toms. And his friend's like, why did you not tell him that? And I mean, if I was proud of my work, why wouldn't I say, hey, this is what I did and I'm proud of it? Whether or not I would be noticed or not, I'm proud of it.
I could see it from his perspective because the person would have just thought that he was crazy. There's also a really cool, maybe not a cool scene, but at the beginning of the movie, the filmmaker is talking to all these people about Motown. And they're like, oh, it's great. Marvin Gaye's my favorite artist, or I love Smokey Robinson or the Temptations. And then he asks them, well, who do you think played the actual music on those albums?
It's like, I don't know, Marvin Gaye's band.
Or the Miracles.
The Miracles? I don't know. And they really had no idea.
So, based on that, I could see why this guy would back off from telling the waiter his story.
Okay.
Because honestly, if somebody told me that, I don't think I would believe them.
But it was just very sad to me that he wasn't able to say that, because the Funk Brothers were not being recognized at the time. Did you thought what I thought that one of the funniest stories was, and I forgot who this guy was. Was it James? I forgot who it was, but it was cold and they were all in this car and it was like 10 degrees below zero. They were all in this car and somebody asked the driver, could you pull the car over, please? And then the guy gets out this bag and he puts on his pajamas. And then they go off again, and then they hear the bag again, and it's he's taking out these pig's feet.
That was okay.
That was kind of funny, but it was yeah. That was kind of funny.
I liked that somebody thought to make a documentary about these musicians. It was long overdue. But when they told stories, they did reenactments.
I did not like that.
Which took me out of it. And also, it's not like they played one song with the cover band at the end.
It was a lot.
It was maybe like 10. And I don't think we're exaggerating.
No, it was what they should have done is put like a disclaimer before the movie started and say this there's a cover band featured. These are not the real band.
Well, we definitely got the sense of that when we heard the actual music.
No, and I'm just like, I don't know who they are. I mean, they sound okay, but it's not the actual bands that have been a part of Motown or any of the artists.
I suspect that they probably couldn't get the licensing from the people who actually own the Motown catalog now. But what I would say is, why have entire songs of theirs in this movie that only want to make you stop the movie and listen to the original? What I would have done is maybe play the opening riff from some different songs instead of playing the whole thing with people who aren't the original singers. Exactly. And I'm sorry, but the guy who did I heard it from the grapevine. He's probably
it's awful.
He's probably a very nice man, but he's not Marvin Gaye.
It's not. It didn't even sound close.
No, I also feel with a film like this, because these musicians have gotten such short shrift over the years. Yeah, I don't want to hear the music of Motown as much as I want to hear their stories and what their lives were like. And by having so much of the music in here, it means there's less time to focus on these people.
What I said earlier was that I wish we would have heard little clips of them live, or even clips of them in the studio, because it would have been more interesting. Because then you get a sense, okay, this is what's going on in the studio. If they were able to find recordings of that. But not get like a cover band. What was really something that I'm like, why do they do this? there was a scene where there was a girl that was talking about singing, and somebody said, she was like, is this an audition? And I'm thinking, oh, geez, is she going to sing with the band? And she did.
Yeah.
I mean, her voice was okay, but I would have rather have heard a clip of the same song, you know?
In that sense, the film feels very amateurish when it just focuses so much on people doing bad covers.
And this, of course, was, and keep in mind too, I mean, the technology wasn't that great back then. This is like in 2002. Mm-hmm. So we've come a long way since then. But I really think they should have thought about that when they were thinking about the music.
Where the film shines is when they tell stories without the reenactments.
Yeah.
Like the piano story, or when they talk about what happened the day Martin Luther King died and the city was basically burning. Yeah. Or when they just tell the simple story about they go to work one day and there's a sign saying that Motown is now in LA.
Yeah, that's right.
They talk a little bit about how some of the musicians stayed behind and others went to LA and couldn't really make it out there.
Right.
But I would have liked to have known a little bit more about what was that like. Like, did you feel betrayed? You played on all these hit records and then one day it's over without notice. You guys helped build this company up. What was that like for you? To just one day be out of work.
Right. And then, so what did you think about when they were talking to the only white guy in the group?
I think there was a couple white guys, to be honest.
Was it a couple white guys?
There was the drummer and then the bass player. I forgot the bass player's name.
I forgot their names, actually. Yeah.
I mean, that was okay.
Yeah. And
I didn't have a problem with that. They were part of the group.
Okay. Yeah, and I thought that was interesting when somebody asked him, so how did you feel about that? I mean, being in a predominantly black setting.
Yeah. And they said that they never felt racially discriminated against. But I don't even think that question needs to be asked because
I don't.
When I'm around music, I mean, I don't really think about color anyways.
I don't think it should be.
But when I'm around music people, the last thing I think about is color because that's our language. We're speaking a language. So I thought, well, why would you even ask that question?
I know, and it's like...
Because obviously you're good enough to where they keep asking you back. So if you being white was really a problem, they probably wouldn't have... You probably would have just gone for one session. I don't think that question needed to be asked. To be honest.
And you know, I mean, I understand that they were talking about how black soul music was considered race music back then, and I get that. That's a part of history.
Yes.
But why would you ask the two white men in the group, why does it even matter? I mean, if you want to do something that you love to do, it's your craft, then who cares about what the person looks like next to you? I mean, I would agree with you on that.
Well, and again, the black musicians didn't care because the white musicians kept coming back.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it's also, I think in relation to the story about Martin Luther King, they say, I believe it's the white bassist comments that, oh no, they never gave me any shit because I was white. They didn't hold it against me that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I'm thinking to myself, of course they didn't.
Of course they didn't. You weren't the one who,
That's such an obvious question that the filmmaker asks. It's like a first year film student.
What I thought was interesting, though, which I'm glad this person said it, because remember when they were telling the story about the place burning down, they just got out of the studio. And, you know, the guy was saying, you know, all I wanted to do is get everybody to the car. Yeah. I didn't care whether it was black or white or, you know, I didn't care what was going on. I just needed to we were all thinking that we need to get to the car and then get out of that area because it was burning.
I like that.
I like that because they were just thinking about the people's interests and saying, we got to get them to the car. No playing around. It doesn't matter what's going on right now and who's fighting who. We have to get to the car.
I felt too, like, instead of asking the white musicians what's it like to be white in this black band.
It was really stupid. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you ask any of the musicians about Berry Gordy and what they thought of him? I don't think his name is ever mentioned in this movie.
No, not at all.
And
not at all.
Don't you find that strange?
It is strange. It is strange because he was the one who started it. Yeah. So I mean, that's a very good observation. I think that the filmmaker really needed to. I personally, if I ever met the filmmaker of this documentary, that would be one of the suggestions I would have made, or ask like, well, why didn't you talk about Berry Gordy? I mean, you didn't talk about him at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't devote the entire film to him. But since he started the company, maybe devote 5 minutes to him.
And the racial questions, that should have been avoided. That should have just been completely out of it, because it doesn't matter anyway. It really doesn't.
And you don't get the sense. I don't think any of the musicians, it mattered to them.
Not at all. They just wanted to make good music, and they wanted to make people happy.
Yes. Yeah. But, I mean, keep it real. It's upsetting to me that it took until the early 2000s for somebody to make a film about these people. And while I think that the filmmaker may have been a little bit too amateurish, at least they did a film about them.
Right.
The Funk Brothers.
If they ever do make another movie about them, and I hope it is a better one.
I would love to read a book about them.
I would also like to read about them too, because they are, now that they're being recognized, I think there should be a book written about these fine musicians.
And I'm sure a lot of them have died off since the movie came out.
Oh yeah, they probably have.
Which is sad, because there's not a lot of stuff archiving their opinions, at least as far as I know.
Yeah, and a lot, and pretty much, I think half of the Temptations are gone now. Or almost all of them.
Almost all of them, I think.
The almost all the original singers, including the guy who sang falsetto.
I want to hear some Temptations today.
Or the Four Tops?
Yeah, or the Four Tops. They're great.
Either one of them.
Yes. I would give this movie a 7.
I would give it a 7. I think it would be...
Not a strong 7.
Not a strong 7, but a 7 nonetheless.
Yes.
Would you agree?
In the words of Roger Ebert, it would get a mild thumbs up. Well, so I actually have a question about this.
Uh-oh.
I realize that I say stuff like mild thumbs up when I give a film a 7.
Yeah.
But should that be more reserved to a 6? Because a 6 is higher than a 5.
No, I wouldn't give it a 6.
No, I'm not talking about the movie, but when you give a mild thumbs up, would that be more like a 6 because you're barely recommending it, or what?
I don't know.
Okay. I might have to re-examine my rating system. You know what it was, babes?
What?
I was listening earlier this week when we talked about 27 Dresses, and I said I would give it a 7 and I'd mildly recommend it. And I think, is it really a 7?
I don't think it really matters.
Okay.
You have your own different rating system. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel had their own rating system. Who cares?
That's true. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie?
No. I would still recommend somebody to see it, but also know that there are going to be issues in it.
Yeah.
I think they're minor issues, but there are still issues.
I think I might have heard about this movie back in the day, but I didn't know how many hit songs they played on. Like, I know, obviously, all the Motown stuff, but they say at the beginning of the movie, they played on more number one hits than the Beatles, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And I forgot who the other artists were combined.
The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, and I forgot the other ones.
Yeah, and it's like,
wow.
I knew that they played on more number one hits than the Beatles, which
actually, no, I take that back. I think I heard that when I first watched the movie, now that I think about it.
They say it at the beginning.
Yes, when I first watched it.
But just playing on more number one hits than the Beatles is extremely impressing.
It is.
I didn't know that it was more than all these other people combined with them.
Yeah, and they were, Berry Gordy was behind making a totally different sound that would reach all the masses.
I mean, I love the Motown.
I love it too. I mean,
it's still great.
Oh, it still holds up today.
Yes.
We're going to listen to some Four Tops later, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe in Temptations.
You're not going to get a lot of protests from me there, Jaylo.
Right.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie?
No, but I will mention what we're going to watch tonight.
Go ahead.
From my end. So, the documentary I think is a little bit better than this, or maybe even much better than this one. Both of them I like. It's called The Wrecking Crew. And what I really like about this movie is that you actually hear interviews from the real people in there, and you hear them play a few things. And I really enjoyed the documentary when I heard it.
I have read a book about them, but it'll be nice to see a movie based on the Wrecking Crew. I'm going to show you the film Crumb from 1994.
Okay.
So it should be a good night.
Yes.
Yes, I'm excited, babes.
I am too.
Yes. I know we had discussed doing another episode of Jaylo Loves Jesus today.
Yes.
Is it still something you want to do, or do you want to save that for next weekend? I'm cool either way.
What time is it now?
It is just after 11.
Certainly. We can certainly do that.
Nice. Babes.
Yes.
Did you have any dreams last night?
I did not.
Well, this is going to be short because I was dreamless as well. I dreamt that I was on Clubhouse.
Actually, it wasn't a dream. It actually was.
And that I was ignoring my Jaylo before dinner last night. But I don't remember the rooms I was in.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But you woke up at 5:30, about an hour and a half before. No, maybe an hour and 15 minutes
I woke
before.
up exactly at 5:38.
Wow.
Yeah, but then I was listening to what I was listening to, and I was kind of just lying there. And
You weren't thinking about me?
well, you were sleeping, Bubs.
Oh, you didn't want to wake me up or hear me breathe.
I could hear that already.
Oh my goodness, Jaylo. Well, I'm glad about that, I guess.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Is there anything else you want to say, babes?
No.
I think we should call this one Rick House instead of Clubhouse.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
Nice. All right. So, babes.
Yes.
I have a confession to make to you.
Yes, you haven't kissed a woman before, right?
How'd you know?
Because you always say that. And
No,
you know
babes, I've never kissed a woman before. You must be psychic.
I don't believe you.
Now,
What?
I know that this is a shock to you because we've been together so long, or maybe it's not because you already knew. And as you know, I've never even held hands with a woman before.
Oh my god. Okay, that's no, I don't believe that either.
I'm wondering, babes, could you teach me how to kiss a woman? I mean, I know we've only been together for 2.5 years, but I gotta learn something.
You know what? You kissed me yesterday, and you kissed me earlier. So
I wonder if I'm having memory problems. All right, let's try this.
Okay.
All right.
This just proves that
I'm intelligent.
no, that you lied.
I would never do that.
You did.
Is there anything else you want to say, babes?
No, but I'm thinking we should have a little snack before the next thing.
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.